But not.
But not bad. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Geeks and Geeklets Book Club. I know it's different. Usually we're playing games and you've already heard bad words by now, but tonight is different. Tonight we don't have the boys. Tonight it's just Melissa and I. And we're going to be discussing Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is awesome. Like all kinds of awesome.
It is quite awesome.
And don't read it and then watch Blade Runner because you'll be mad.
Yes.
Blade Runner's good by itself. But when you take into account the book and what they took out and what they changed, it makes it so mad. You just get angry with yourself.
And then you get mad at the pacing of the movie too, because if you didn't read the book, the movie isn't very good.
Yeah. It's just all around not a good situation.
No.
Mm-mm. So we're going to be mostly focusing on the book. If we get mad and talk about the movie a little bit, sorry, but I watched it when I was younger and I really liked it. And now I just regret watching it again. I hate to say it. All right. So let's see here. The book, it's very hard to explain quickly because there is a lot that goes on. I think that's pretty accurate to say. What do you think, Melissa? Like there's a lot.
Well, I feel like you could explain it pretty easily, but you'll lose a lot of the nuances that actually make the book fantastic.
Right. So recommend you that you read this book and then you listen to us talk about it because so much happens that I don't want to even give a 2-minute summary. It would just ruin everything. Because if you haven't read it and I give you the summary and I ruin it, I'd feel really bad. I feel guilty.
Yeah. So I guess that should be our disclaimer. Read the book.
Read the book before you listen to us because we're going to give crap away. Cheers.
Spoiler alerts
everywhere.
everywhere.
Spoiler alerts everywhere. Okay. So my first question for you, since it's just us two, we're at to rattle things off at each other. Why would it be necessary to have an empathy box in this kind of world? And what does it do for people that can't get connections through their own reality?
This is a very good question.
So personally, at first, the empathy boxes were really confusing.
I agree. I still don't quite understand the whole rocks being thrown from the whatever. That was kind of thrown in. But anyway.
No, I agree with that, though. That's a
yeah.
big part of it, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
The whole way.
But anyway, the empathy boxes, I thought it was very interesting to be like, well, you can just control your mood with these numbers. And it was interesting to watch the Deckard's wife kind of be like, well, I want to be in depression right now. Like that is how I'm feeling. And to kind of counteract the idea that the empathy box is supposed to make you feel happy and things of quote that I really liked. So what do you think while I'm finding this?
So I agree with that. It's funny how they even allowed the individuals to pick the other states of mind. Like it allowed them to pick the depression, the sadness, and the apathy. And I found that kind of odd because in the world that seemed to be really controlling on happiness and general status quo of the group, to let a whole group go into depression seemed awkward to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that's very correct. we have Drew over here writing notes to me because he loved the book too. But and he's right. He said to me because androids don't have empathy,
right?
Which is another big task. That's why they have the the Voight-Kampff test.
Mm-hmm.
So the androids don't have empathy, but all the humans do have empathy. And it's funny because there's always that theory that Deckard is actually an android. That's why he can't connect with his box as well.
True.
Because he tries.
Mm-hmm. He does try to use the box, but he doesn't get the same satisfaction from it as somebody else. And something that kind of freaked me out with the empathy boxes was the fact that you could program it for other people. Like there was that thing when he programmed his wife to be like something about respecting her husband's decision, and she changed it back. But the idea that through empathy you can control someone else's emotion was a little evil to me.
It's a little scary because he was naming ones that were like, you will always follow your husband. You want to have sex with your husband. It was like, oh.
Well, it was written in the late 50s or 50s or 60s.
50s
Time
or
out.
60s, yeah. You're right.
Fact check.
Fact check. It was written around that time, we think.
Mm-hmm. It was written in 1968.
So almost 70s, but still around 68. That makes sense.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, I get where they were coming from on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The empathy box was like, so for Isidore, it was really important to him to have that.
It was almost like his status symbol because he was special, but he still had his way of connecting and interacting with the world.
Right. And I think because he was completely and utterly alone.
Yes. And that was another huge theme in the book was like, this is an empty world. There aren't many people here anymore. You had this giant apartment building that if there were more than one person, you wouldn't know because they were so spread out.
Right. And it was all deteriorating. And it seemed to be quickly deteriorating.
Yes.
How he described it.
Which would actually make sense with the radiation theories that were put on, like with the radiation clouds going through and destroying everyone, and how they had to be indoors to avoid the radiation. And that can break things down pretty quickly.
This is why we have a scientist join us, because
yay.
Go science.
But that kind of works.
Right. And that makes sense. Did you end up finding a quote about this that you wanted to find?
Oh, yeah. I did. Maybe. I got distracted because we moved on. I don't know. You can keep talking.
So in general, I don't know. The empathy boxes were necessary to keep the world going, it almost seemed like. And it almost, in my mind, I got that it was like a brainwashing tool for whoever. Because when you're feeling like you're alone, what you want to have is a connection with the other world, with everybody. And this is the only way to have that.
I did find it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep talking, though.
So, no. And if they didn't have those boxes, they would, it kind of kept them in check. Because if Isidore didn't have that, what would he probably would have offed himself or starved or died, who knows, a long time ago.
Yeah. So I know that this won't help the viewers. Oh, wait. Oh, it's put question marks everywhere.
Why did I do that?
Okay. I don't know. But this was Isidore talking about his empathy box. And he gets really excited because he's like, but an empathy box is the most personal possession you have. It's an extension of your body. It's the way you interact with other humans. It's the way you stop being alone. But you know that. Everybody knows that. Mercer even lets people like me. He broke off, but too late. He had already told her, and he could see by her face, by the flicker of sudden aversion, that she knew. I almost passed the IQ test, he said in low, shaky voice. I'm not very special, only moderately. Not like some you see, but that's what Mercer doesn't care about. So the empathy box is super important to him because that is his connection to the world. And it is his way that they all kind of work together. And he asked, and I think he's talking to an android at this point in time, but he's like, don't you participate in fusion? Don't you own an empathy box?
He was talking to Pris.
Yeah.
Pris, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Wrong book series for Prim.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Pris thing got me too, because it reminded me of stupid Tris from the Divergent series, which I do not like. And I was like, what a way to draw a parallel to another world. Thanks, Divergent.
I thought it. I like the subtle, like, oh, my name's Pris. Like, she almost says Rachel, and then she changes her name.
Right, but was that necessary?
Meet her. It told the readers that it was an android. I honestly thought it was the actual Rachel at first. I was like, what is she doing there?
And it threw me off completely. And then I was like, no, she's not really Rachel.
She's Rachel 2.0.
Exactly. And I think it could have been probably said a different way. It got the point across that she was one, but I don't think it was 100% necessary. It was almost too confusing for me at that point.
I did reread a lot of chapters.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of notes scribbled down that goes question mark, question mark, question mark. Why? What is happening? Underlines, stars. My book's a mess. My book is a mess.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know it's a good book.
Yeah, and it was. It engaged you. I mean, to reread chapters for me is a lot because I normally, if I don't like a chapter, if I don't get it, I just go, I'll figure it out later. But to actually sit there and reread it, figure it out, was good. Mm-hmm. It was good.
And now let's say something here. The book is only 119 pages PDF. So rereading a chapter isn't that big of a deal. If it was a longer book, I'd be like, oh, this will probably make sense later on. But when you get those shorter books, it's kind of like, no, every word is important. I must understand this before I move on so I don't get lost.
It's not a long book, but
no,
the points that it touches on in just those pages is immense.
Mm-hmm. So I thought the relationships in the book were interesting too. Like the relationship between Deckard and his wife and how they were very distant from each other, I felt. Like they existed to appease each other or to make sure that the other one was happy, but I didn't see a whole lot of actual emotional connection between them.
Yeah, and you wonder if that was before or after they didn't get to leave the planet. Because it almost seemed like she harbored resentment against him for that.
Yes.
You don't really know why, but the first couple lines that they talk, it's venomous.
It's tense, yeah.
That's a lot to handle. Like, you don't even know what's going on. You don't understand the war, but to put in this relationship that is so tense that the husband and wife can't even talk to each other, and she's over there on empathy box doing who knows what.
Yeah. Yeah, it starts out with him saying, you set your pen field too weak. I'll reset it and you'll be awake. And she goes, keep your hands off my settings. I don't want to be awake. Like, that's basically how it starts. So there's this tone of like, I can control you with this, but you don't want to be controlled by me or by the box. But she does want to be controlled by the box. And
only
she
by
almost,
the box, though, but that she can fix, though.
Right. Weird. And she feels empathy for the androids.
Which was weird. Because she's, and you could tell us early on. So they have that sheep. And she's very much about status and appearance.
Yes.
Why would she care about the androids if that's how he makes his money?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like contradicting herself. She's like, I want you to make all this money so we can maybe get a real pet. A real animal. Mm-hmm. I don't want to call it a pet because it's not even like a pet. It's like a treasure. Then she goes, I feel bad for all these androids.
It's a status symbol.
It is.
Yeah.
And she's like, I feel bad for all the androids that you murder. But thanks for doing that so I can buy myself a goat.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the animals?
We can talk about the animals. The animals was really interesting to me. And that is something that really made me mad about Blade Runner, is that the animal was never addressed. It drove me crazy.
Yeah, well, they like just touched on it. They didn't go into the whole background of there are very few animals on the earth. And considering that was such a big part of the book, I'm surprised that it wasn't in there. Like, especially Isidore and Deckard, they kept whipping out the like Australia or Sydney's animal list or whatever.
Right. I like that. I like that you were judged based off what animal you had. And it was this form of status that I never even thought of until I read the book. I never thought of it. Mm-mm. Like Isidore said he found a spider.
I know. And then he like freaked out when they started torturing the poor thing. But at the same time with Isidore and the cat, and he didn't realize that it wasn't okay, so background, Isidore works for a electric animal repair company, but since having an electric animal is seen as lower status, they kind of advertise as a veterinarian business, but it's kind of like a back alley vet. And they pick up a cat, and Isidore is looking for all the electrical circuits and can't find them. And he doesn't realize that it's actually a real cat.
Right.
And I thought that was an interesting exchange. And people get insurance for their animals so that if their animal dies, they can replace it.
Well, they hide it too, that it's fake, which is funny. Like, he comes in like a secret van.
Yes.
But no, that whole scene where he's trying to find the plugs on the cat, I'm like, this has to be a real cat. Like, why can't you not find the plugs on this cat?
Right.
And he takes it so hard, and his boss is so mean to him. I feel horrible.
But at the same time, that's the author doing a really good job of playing or writing a character with a low IQ.
Yes.
It's really hard to write a character who's either more intelligent or less intelligent than you are.
Right.
So it made his character more believable and more real.
Oh, you could empathize with him completely the entire time. You were just like, oh, this poor guy.
He got so much trouble.
And he doesn't even mean to. When he called the lady to tell her that her cat died, I was like, oh. Granted, a real vet couldn't have healed a cat like that.
No.
Like, the cat was dying, no matter what.
Right. And that's kind of what they went with when they talked to the homeowner or the cat owner, whatever.
The same thing. Property owner, technically.
Right. And then the Rosen Association's zoo. In the movie, going to the movie, he knew right away that the owl was an electric animal.
Yes.
Whereas in the book, he didn't find that out until much later or figure it out until much later.
And it really upset him that it was fake.
Yes, it did. Because he was all excited that it was like a real owl because they're supposedly extinct.
A lot of animals are extinct.
Yes. It's true.
I mean, pretty much everything is. I mean, easy things to breed in hardy items, I guess.
But there was like the ostrich, wasn't there?
Which is weird to me.
Yeah, that was an odd. Unless if other countries weren't as affected by the radiation thing,
which
like, I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would have worked.
And it could be. That's why I said maybe they make money off the import of animals. You don't know. But to have a natural spider that Isidore found was really, really neat. Because nobody finds animals anywhere. Nobody finds bugs anywhere. And to have him find this spider, I mean, he was so happy. He got a little bottle for it and was showing everybody. Then it got killed. But
at the same time, he was like heartbroken watching this spider be mutilated. Like that hurt him a lot. And I like the author's choice of a spider because our usual response to seeing a spider, well, not me because I'm who I am, but most people are probably like, kill it.
I scream and have somebody kill it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like for me, I'm like, keep up the good work, little buddy. Go kill some bugs for me. Like it's
no.
But there's but I thought it was interesting that they chose a spider to be the animal that Isidore is like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. And it was a more natural animal than most others. I'm glad it was an insect in general, an arachnid. I'm glad it was something.
That makes sense in that world that they would have survived. Yeah.
It does. And it's funny that most people don't see them or they're not really more prominent. And I actually thought that about mice and rats.
Yeah.
I don't think they're wiped out as easily as.
No. They're just, they exist through many things. Like cockroaches.
They should be around too.
Some lizards that live in the ground should probably be around.
So that kind of.
Amphibians would be gone like immediately.
Yes. But not. And that's why at the very end of the book when he finds the toad, I was like, there's no way that's a real toad.
Yeah, same here. I had the exact same response. I'm like, no, those cannot exist in this world.
And I'm actually glad the author did that though. Like he made it an electric toad.
Yes.
I'm glad. Like, I just thought that was amazing. I was like, thank you for not cheating science because they would be dead.
Yes. I was mad that the goat died. That upset me.
Not even died. The goat was murdered.
Murdered. Thrown off the side of the building.
Goat-aside is what the word is for this. Rachel is a horrible person.
She is.
So when you read the book, you'll realize that Rachel's evil.
Oh, she's
tricks Deckard. She sleeps with Deckard, and then she's like, "Oh, that was just a ploy so you don't kill androids anymore." Ha 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 ha. And she tricks him about the bird, which made me mad in the first place. I should have known she was evil then. And then she pushes his goat off the top of a building.
But then you have to question yourself because she's an android. Is she just programmed to be evil, or is she just carrying out the Rosen Association's?
She almost passed the VK test.
That's true.
She was She did pass it, except for one question that he added at the end.
Right.
She was the most lifelike one.
Yes. And she got to the other bounty hunter too.
Yeah, to what? Oh, what was his name? I forget his name.
The other guy who was helping him.
Yeah, who wasn't Android 2, or they thought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Rachel's evil and she kills a goat, which is very depressing. But I don't like, I like how the wife like didn't do anything. Like she was just like, she pushed the goat off the roof. Sorry, hun.
Yeah. But that kind of works with her character, because her character is kind of like that, buys into the utopia, I guess is the way that I would explain it. Because she's 100% in on the empathy machine. She's 100% watching the show. Oh, what was that show? The Friendly.
Oh, what was the guy? Buster Friendly?
Buster Friendly. Yes. So like she was living the way that the corporations wanted her to live.
Right.
So I totally called that the Buster Friendly was an android like way, way back.
Yeah, it's this is so weird. I got the impression, and this is not true, that it was like the mechanical rabbit from Silent Hill 4. So I had a really bad image the whole entire time. It was this mechanical rabbit talking to people, and that's not what it is. But my brain told me that's what it is. So I was like not shocked. I was like, oh yeah, duh, it's a rabbit. It's talking to people. Yeah.
I think the other bounty hunter's name was Phil.
Phil, that was it. Phil
Rush.
I
was just clicking through the document. I'm like, what is this? But but what tipped me off to it was he had the same personalities all the time. It was a 24-hour show, so no breaks, nothing. I'm like, no human could do that. That has to be an android.
But nobody thought that.
No. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
No. Well, okay. It doesn't surprise me that not the general population didn't think about it. But why didn't Deckard think that?
Deckard should have. But at the same time, Deckard doesn't watch his show 24/7.
True. But his wife does. His
wife does. But then at the same time, like we could watch reruns of Supernatural for 24 hours.
I have. That's not a lie. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that he just honestly did not give a crap about his house, his home. So when that happened, he was just like, whatever.
Okay.
That's fine. You can watch him 24/7. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that Van cough test or void cough, whatever, VK.
Yeah. VK test.
Did you notice that almost all the questions are animal based?
Yes. But that was the point of it, I think, because you had to show that you cared that bad things happened to the animals.
Except the only question that really stood out was the one oh, you find a picture of what was it, the girl that's half naked and your husband hangs it up?
Yes. And you're supposed to be mad that she's laying on a bearskin rug.
Right.
That was weird.
I was very concerned about that question.
I feel like there were some more sexual ones in there too.
There were, and he asked them to Luba, didn't he?
Yeah. And she got pissed off and
called him a predator.
Yeah.
He's gonna rape me. That's what she claimed. So she
called. But at the same time, I mean, and how elaborate was that? When he went to the android run.
Oh,
that kind of messed my brain. I had to reread that one a couple of times too.
That's what I reread too. I was like, what's happening? Why? Well, I don't get this one.
He's an android now? What?
It actually really hurt my feelings. I was like, Deckard is not an android. I was really mad.
He can't be an android.
He can't be an android. Why would he be an android? But he was.
And then it ended up being, I like how they explained that though. That made me happy afterwards. And no, it's a closed loop. It's set up by the Rosen specifically to break bounty hunters.
Right. And I wish I would have read on, because I wouldn't have to read that chapter 3 times.
Yeah.
I would have just figured it out.
Yeah. That was one that I was taking notes on, where I was like, what is going on? My head hurts.
Oh, completely. Do you think that Deckard was an android, or do you think he was a human in the end?
I really hope he was a human.
Well, you hope.
I think he was a human though, because unlike the androids, he actually had a life. Like he had a wife. He had his life built up, and he didn't. If he was an android, he would have been made new because of the technology at the time.
The 4-year technology.
Right. So he would have had to be a Nexus 6 if he was an android. And I don't think they could fabricate another, like a wife or a sheep or those other things. Granted, they might be able to, unless his wife's also an android. Everybody's an android.
It's all androids. It's just like an experiment from Mars. Yeah, I don't. At first, there were times in the book I was like, oh, maybe he is one. I really questioned.
But at the same time, you also have that, like, he's a killer in that world. So that's going to change the way that he views things and interacts with things. And he's a hardened person who doesn't buy into all of the empathy crap.
But he buys into the animal crap.
He does. I think that's just because he wants, and I feel like his reason for wanting an animal is different than his wife's reason for wanting an animal. Like, she wants it for the status. I don't think he wants it for the status. I think he wants it for more of the companionship and the, like,
that he can't get from his wife.
That he can't get from his wife. And if he has an animal, then maybe his wife will respect him more. So it's kind of like he wants an animal to be a part of this society that he's not currently a part of.
I really kind of wish he would have done more books, like either before or after. Like, I want to see what their life was beforehand. Like, were they in an arranged marriage? Did they hate each other before? Because it's hard, because sometimes she loves him and you don't know if it's because the empathy box made her love him.
Right. And wouldn't that be okay? I had a friend who was on antidepressants back in high school. Like, this was a long time ago, early 2000s. And one of the things that he ran into is he's like, well, I'm happy, but I'm only happy because I'm on drugs that make me happy. I would imagine that's kind of the same feeling that his wife got from the empathy box. Like, yes, I'm satisfied right now, but I'm only satisfied because the box told me to be satisfied.
Right. And she even makes mention that when you think about the silence, which what I took that as when you think about the emotions, when you think about what you're understanding, that's how I felt that she was saying it, not like the physical silence, but the emotional silence that they had.
Right.
And she claimed, like, she says that's the most disturbing feeling she's ever felt. And she can't think about it too long or else she'll go crazy.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting how they played that out.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that.
And I do think that's also like being alone with your thoughts and being alone with your inner self.
Right. Right. And it's true. Now, do you think that if the androids were to actually express empathy, that they would not be hunted, or do you think they'd be allowed to live with humans?
I have a feeling, knowing humanity, that they would always be hunted, but they wouldn't always be. I feel like there would be more mistakes. Like, because something that I was curious about is whether or not being connected to the empathy box actually made you less empathetic in the long run. Like, how do normal there's never a point in the book when a human took the VK test, was there? Because
Decker took the VK test?
Didn't he take the spinal test?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't remember what chapter that was in. Otherwise, I'd find it. It was before that.
Yeah. Did any human take the VK test in the book? That's a good question.
Because I know that he had a thing with okay, there's the opera.
Well, you
chapter.
think that Rachel's a human when she takes it, and she answers like a human until the very last question.
Yeah.
Well, the added question, not even the last question.
Okay. I found the chapter where he goes to the phony police station. Yeah. Let's see.
Didn't the guy go to get the test and he walked in the door and he shot the captain instead of giving the test?
Hold on. I'm just looking really quick.
Oh, that's fine.
They were talking about doing bone marrow tests on Luba Luft. They were talking about testing her out. Like cough. No, I think they tested Phil.
Did they test? He did test Phil.
And he tested Garland, and that's how they found out that Garland was a thing. But, I mean, they allude that Deckard has taken it in the past and has passed it.
Yeah, I think they say multiple times that they have to take it to be a bounty hunter.
Yeah. Rick says, you can test me, I'm ready. I'd like to test you too if you're willing. So they did. Yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of talking about testing each other. I can't find whether they did it or not.
Who knows?
Yeah, whatever.
One thing, like at the closer to the end of the book, Deckard talks to his secretary. It was after he gets really hurt and he starts flying out in the ship.
Yeah,
and she says something like, "Those 3 androids you retired, they were," and he's like, "Yeah, I know," and he cuts her off. Do you remember that part?
I'm looking it up right now.
It's like at the very end. It's like, yeah, like at the when he's. I think he's in the spaceship. Or I call it a spaceship, whatever it looks like. I really don't know.
Right.
It'd be a very fast car for all that I know.
Yeah.
But when she says that, it made me question if they were actually all androids in the first place.
Oh, like if the things that they were.
And
retiring?
If some of them weren't, and if some of them maybe weren't androids, or maybe it was planted evidence that they made them like androids because they wanted to get rid of these people for whatever reason. It was just a weird sentence that she said, and they never really finished it.
Oh, here it is, where she goes, "Oh, Mr. Deckard, Inspector Bryant has been trying to get a hold of you. I think he's turning your name over to Chief Cutter for a citation because you retired those 6. And then Deckard says, "I know what I did." And then she says, "That never happened before. Oh, and Mr. Deckard, your wife phoned."
It was just a weird sentence to me.
It is a weird sentence. Well, first of all, what does a citation mean? Is that a positive or a negative?
I always thought it was a negative connotation of a word.
Yeah.
Maybe in 1968 it meant something different, but to me that went, oh no.
Did something bad.
Right. I don't know. It was just weird. I mean, they don't explain it at all.
No. That is a weird little piece, though, because then it's like, well, were they all actually androids? Did they all pass the bone marrow test?
Right. And is there maybe he is an android and they're wiping out humans for whatever? You don't know. I mean, none of it's explained.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know.
And then they get into the high on Wilbur Mercer, and that's kind of where I lost things.
Okay,
like,
I lost things all about the Mercer.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. There were stones involved. I wasn't paying attention.
He was walking up a hill. There were stones, and then he found a toad. That is all I got out of it.
Yes.
And like they have physical like wounds from these stones.
Yes.
No idea how that happens.
No.
And his wife even says, "Oh, thank you for taking the stone from me. It always hurts."
Right. I don't understand.
Listeners, if you have read this book and you understand the Mercer thing, for the love of God, email us because we have no idea what happened.
And I think by that point, we're like chapters 20 through 22.
Yeah.
And also in chapter 20, they do refer to it as, "Well, go get some rest. We'll send a patrol car to pick up 3 bodies." Like, they don't call them androids.
Exactly. See, I don't know. I think there's something else going on. I know it's like far-fetched, but it's been plaguing me. Ever since I read that line, I was like, oh, what did Deckard do?
I know. What is actually going on here? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys?
Exactly.
I don't know anymore.
I will say that I think the Mercer thing is a subplot that if you don't understand it, it's okay. Because the book is still fine without all that Mercer stuff in it, because you're not, I mean, like I said, if you get it, please tell me, because I don't understand.
There's just so many layers to this book. Like, that's why it's so hard to summarize, because you could say it's about a bounty hunter who's going off to kill a bunch of androids, Or you
Yes.
could say it's like an internal struggle between what it means to be a human and what it means to be an android. You could go the animal route. You could go the Mercer route. You could go through empathy box. Like there's just so much that's crammed into this 119-page book that it's just like, there's just so much in it.
And it's funny how much you do understand going through it.
Yes.
It's funny that you only didn't understand the one subplot. Like the rest of it, we got. But there's that one subplot that just plagued me. I was like, I don't know what Mercer's going on. I have no idea about this Mercer guy.
Yeah.
And then like Isidore.
Okay, when Isidore was first introduced, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm going to roll with it for now. And then I understood.
Right. And at first, I honestly thought he was some sort of like mage. Because he talks about bringing animals back to life. And I was like, what turn did this book make? And like, I would say for about half the book, I really thought he was like bringing animals back to life, and that's why he was special.
Oh, I actually picked up on the special part pretty quickly because that basically means that you were mutated through the radiation is how I interpret it.
And I thought that too, but I thought there was something else with him because he was just how he kept talking about it.
Low IQ. Yeah.
Yes.
It's how he identifies himself.
Exactly. And it's because of that. But I took it as I was like, wait, maybe this book's going somewhere I'm concerned about. And then when he thinks he meets Mercer, and then when Mercer appears to Deckard in the hallway, that was all
that was weird. Again, with the Mercer subplot,
over my head.
We're lost. I did have one thought as we were talking for a moment. What was it? Something with Isidore. Oh, you know how you were saying about how he was mutated, so he had bad genes. There were no children in these books. Like Deckard and his wife had no kids. They didn't talk about like future generations at all. Like if you were living with someone and there's just no mention of it at all. And I thought that was interesting.
No, you're right. Now you say that, I do think that. It's funny because they act like the animals are replacement children in a way.
Right.
Because their sole purpose is getting a real animal, and we're in real humane society. It's passing on your genes.
Right.
That's weird. They don't actually talk much about death either.
They talk about the death of the animals. They don't talk about human death.
That's awkward because you're living in a society with radiation and most people are gone from the planet. Well, I don't want to say planet because you don't really know.
They keep referring to Rachel as like a child, though, like child features, childlike stance, childlike eyes.
Do you think they made androids replace the children on Mars?
I think that androids were more like the service people on Mars.
Then why would they make them childlike?
There was a reason for it. I just passed it. Hold on.
I left my book at work.
Oh no. The first time when he talks about it was Rachel Rosen, and he said no real development, especially in the bust, a figure like a child's, flat and tame. So or then it says her immense eyes widened with childlike acceptance. So maybe it makes them less intimidating.
Yeah.
And easier to relate to, I guess.
Well, look at Robert Batty. He was completely opposite of that, and he was scary to be described.
Who was?
Robert Batty, the one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Android. The leader android that died in like 5 seconds, and I had to reread that paragraph.
Like, wait, did something just happen?
I will say he's the best killer of anything I've ever seen because he just does it and the paragraph's over and they're moved on. And I'm like, wait, there's been no struggle.
But that's because he's not killing people. He's killing androids. Right. And he's killing them with laser guns that just mess up their internal organs.
It is
so like that giant epic fight in Blade Runner, totally not in the book.
Mm-mm.
No.
Basically, they're two different things. That's why they didn't call Blade Runner Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
And we even replaced a bunch of names and yeah.
and made
Mhm.
Luba an exotic dancer and not an opera singer, you know,
With a snake.
with a snake. I like how you keep bringing that part up. Like, that's the best part. But no, you know what? That snake makes it weird because that's not possible.
Mm-mm. It was
You're
probably
right.
an electric snake. But I mean, I guess that makes her more exotic, but then that would have been hella expensive. And everyone would know that it was electric. So
Yeah.
it's oh, it's so weird.
Basically, they just wanted to show that actress's boobs on screen for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the only reason. And
There was
crazy
no need.
hair.
Yeah, what
Crazy
was up
hair.
with the hair?
I blame that it was made in 1982.
God, was that when it was made?
Yeah.
Jeez, oh man.
And it was set in 2019.
Oh, we're almost
So
there.
we are.
We're almost there to electric sheep.
It's always it was interesting to me reading this how the two superpowers were US and Russia. And it always amuses me reading old science fiction that they're like, "Oh, we have flying cars. Oh, we have androids, but we don't have the internet.
I
We
know,
don't have
it's
laptops."
hilarious. It's hilarious.
We do have video phones. Proof. Video phones.
There is
There you
video
go.
phones. He did predict that. I claim he predicted it. You go, Philip.
I don't know if
You
he's
and your-
the first one, but
Probably
a
not.
lot of
Well,
no.
1984. Look at that book. That's just
That's true. And then Orson Scott Card in Children of the Mind had a little thing connected to his head that they could talk to, and I thought Bluetooth. Like,
oh, Orson, you and your books, so forward thinking.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm
But
so glad we're reading Ender's Game next month.
I
I'm
can't
so
wait.
excited.
Have you read it before?
I've read it 6 times.
Okay.
It's my favorite.
Yay.
I love it. I'm just like, yes. I've listened to it too. So
Mhm.
it's interesting to listen to the book
Good.
and read it. It's 2 different worlds you get.
Did you
out of
see
that.
the movie?
Yes.
I actually was not disappointed in that one.
I
Unlike Blade
actually
Runner.
really liked the movie. If you do not want to read the book of Ender's Game, please watch the movie, then join us. You'll get the same feeling.
Pretty much.
They did a
But
good job.
anyway, we could talk about that next month.
God, I can't wait.
Mm.
Try to think if there's anything else about this one.
Was there anything that stuck with you after reading it?
Oh, I honestly felt horrible for Deckard and his goats. Like after ending the book, and he like has his little toad, and he has him in a box, and I was just like, Deckard, man, like what's gonna happen to him? He might just jump off the roof too. I don't know, but it was funny because with all that happening, his wife seemed to love him at the end.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes,
know if
that
it
is true.
Was it the box? Was it she actually woke up from the box maybe? Did something happen? Because he didn't take the stone from her, which made me think that maybe the stoning was something like to keep them under a
But
control
at
of
the
some
same
sort.
time, wasn't that after everything came out about the wasn't that after everything came out about how the Friendly show was
Androids.
androids
And there was-
and Mercer wasn't real? Like it was after that she actually
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, okay."
True. Yeah, but she doesn't really say anything about it. She kind of mentioned, I think she maybe says, did
Yeah.
you see the Friendly show? And that was it.
Yeah.
I think she almost took the role of wife again, like because he was so
Mhm.
broken.
Yeah.
That she almost was like, oh, well, you're broken. I'm going to try to fix you, because he keeps trying to fix her the entire time.
Right. Yes, he is. But the way that he tries to fix her is, well, did you try this setting in the machine? He's not actually like saying why, doing all of the things that our awesome husbands do to make us feel better. He's just like, here. It's essentially saying, here's
Prozac.
the pills, like it's a very distant way of comforting someone.
And she turns around and does it the opposite way. She turns
Yes.
around and like talks to him. It's like, okay, she calls and gets his toad fixed. She's going to get him food and the best live cricket or whatever. I don't know if it's like whatever he was gonna eat
And she kind of like looks out for him
while he sleeps.
Yeah.
It was a complete change, a shift in everything.
But it also gave her life a little bit more purpose and meaning to take care of him and his animals too. Like he needed her, whereas before he didn't. She was just this kind of thing that he appeased all the time. Whereas when he was actually broken and she actually stepped up and he needed her to help him.
Do you think that they need that empathy because there's no more children? Like, so they don't experience. So they describe the empathy box in one scene with the goat. She's like, you need to share your feelings of excitement with everybody.
Yes.
So touch
Yeah.
this box, which I just assumed was, you know, there's like love test machines in arcades where you hold both hands and they vibrate. That's what I got. This, I don't know.
That's kind of what I pictured too.
Okay.
Like kind of like this box with like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Doing that. Now, if you were to get a goat and you had a kid, you'd be sharing it with the feeling with your children. So it's almost like passing down your emotions and your joy to your family that you don't have.
Right. And there was a quote that I actually posted in our group that stuck out to me about that, which was, oddly, empathy resembled a sort of biological insurance, but double-edged. As long as some creature except the condition for all other creatures included that fragmented joy. However, if any living being suffered, then for all the rest, the shadow could not be entirely cast off. So it's like this idea of sharing in each other's emotions, and how that could be both a positive and a detriment.
Right.
And that stuck out to me because me personally, I'm a very empathetic person.
Right.
So like it's some days are very challenging. If everybody around me is being super negative, then I'm like, I can't pull myself out of it. But on the other hand, I get super excited for people as well. So like that just stuck out to me as I understand this quote. But in the book, that is a forced thing that everybody's kind of taking in together. So it almost normalizes the population and normalizes emotions and hormones and all that nonsense.
Yeah. Don't you wish like we would have found out who was controlling all this?
Yes.
Like nothing was touched on that.
But you know what? That's a difference between this book and something like 1984. Because in most novels like this, there's always like, oh, well, it's this corporation or it's this government or it's this. But this was almost like a small piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Where we were very focused on San Francisco. We were very focused on Deckard. We were not focused on the big picture of why is the civilization like this? Because I don't feel like this book was trying to break up the civilization. I feel like it was just showing one man's journey through it.
Maybe that makes it more relatable because I know a lot of people have trouble with sci-fi because it takes a look at the big picture of what's happening and people feel like they get lost from how you would feel as a person in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But with this book, you're only as that person. You can empathize with Deckard and Isidore and, you know.
And Isidore. Yeah.
You can empathize with them. Whereas in most sci-fi, like the characters you like, but you want them to destroy the man.
Right.
So you don't feel their trials and tribulations as much as you do is that is a society I don't want to live in. You must beat that guy. So I personally don't have to be in that society. But with this book, I understand how Deckard feels and I feel bad for him for his goat and I'm happy he got his toad at the end and you just feel more personal level with this book.
Talking about like personal and sci-fi, I feel like Firefly does a pretty good job of being personal and sci-fi because they already lost the war against the corporation.
This is like after war too, so it's like the same
remnants trying to survive.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. But it's not like Ender's Game, which we'll talk about next month, where like they're going after the aliens and you want to destroy the aliens. But Ender's completely different, so we'll talk about that. But
yeah. No, I think everybody should read this book. This is a really good jump into if you don't like normal sci-fi. If you read this, I think that it's a different kind of sci-fi.
It is, especially if you like mind games.
Yeah.
Or puzzles.
Or rereading chapters over and over again.
Yeah.
Some chapters just keep reading and it explains it. Trust yourself. Don't keep reading like we did.
But there are some where you're like, wait, did somebody just die? What just happened?
Like 6 times I've done that. I was like, wait, is Luba alive or Luba dead?
This isn't one you can read when you're distracted.
No.
Like you kind of need to be in your little reading bubble.
Yes. I agree with that one. There was times where I paused my music. I was like, okay, hold on. Focus on what's in
Yeah.
front of me.
Yeah, that happens.
Anything else you want to say to wrap up here? Or?
It's an awesome book. Read it. Don't watch the movie.
No, don't. Or write a really good paper for your class if you're in college as to why they're different. Take a sci-fi class like we did. It's great.
We did, yes.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Join us next month for Ender's Game. It's going to be awesome.
Yay.
So excited. All right. Night, everybody.
Night.